up for our next TED-like talk.
A 10-year-old dream of mine just got solved by AI. AI just gave me a lot of hair. Did you see that? I want a photo of that, guys, okay? Okay. Pay very close attention to this, okay? What you are seeing here is cutting edge aircraft research outcome. Aircraft research, right here. Clap, yeah? Now, I'm sure, give me some time to explain. I'm sure you guys must have looked at this tiny paper plane and assumed this is what I was talking about. But in reality, I'm not talking about this plane. I'm talking about this tiny piece of paper. This tiny piece of paper is what I'm saying is the outcome of cutting edge aircraft research. The reason is this guy. His name is Spencer Silver. He was working for this company called 3M, and he was given this task to find a super strong adhesive. And this adhesive was going to be used for building aircrafts. But what happens? In his whole process, he ends up creating a super weak adhesive, which does not stick at all. Now, if it was me, I would take all the apparatus, bury it somewhere, because that's exact opposite of what I was intending. But this guy, he did not do that. What he did was, he worked on that idea, stood strong with that idea, and took it forward some 12 long years, and finally, after so many years, he created this product called Post-its. Now, did you know that this thing on which you write Maida 1 kg and send it out is the outcome of aircraft research? But in the middle of all this shocking information, the most shocking thing for me was that, yeah, why did it take 12 years? Because in the first few months or year, this person had figured out that this weak adhesive could be used for something, but then it took him 12 years to figure out an actual use case and make it a product and start selling it. Why did it take 12 years? And the answer is, the company he was working for, 3M, was rejecting this idea. They were not approving this idea, and mind you, this guy has some 20 plus patents in his name, and still he could not convince his team that this has some viable use. And with seeing that, what I felt is, yeah, it is not easy being a scientist, because till now I thought it was just enough to come up with the idea, but it seems like it's not just enough to come up with the idea, you also have to convince the world that this is the best idea existing. Does this look familiar? Yeah? Because now I'm scared, because as a designer, I also have to come up with new ideas and also convince the world that this is the right idea to work on. Does that mean my life is not also so easy like a scientist? Let me ask you this one question and give me the answer to this. Have you ever had to throw away a great idea just because your manager was not convinced? Never? Maybe you are the manager. You know? But a show of hands. Nobody has had their ideas discarded? A few hands. Mine has never been discarded. My manager is super supportive, is the best. He's right here. Here we. But when I'm thinking about it, the question is, yeah, rejection is very normal. Is it such a big deal if your idea gets rejected? If you want to know the answer to that, you will have to answer the question, what really is the job of a designer? Is anybody becoming uncomfortable? No, okay, cool, a good bunch. So I'm going to be staying at a very high level for this. The job of designer, the overall process looks like, starts with defining and identifying the problem, asking the right questions, building great ideas, finding solutions, and then executing and making them into a reality. That is what the whole work looks like. But in most of our cases, these three things are always handled by different teams. usually the problem is found by researchers, and the ideas are done by maybe service designers or UX designers or industrial designers, and the execution usually is done by engineers or developers. This can be mixed up, I understand that, but this is the most common scenario that we see. And when such a wide variety of different types of teams get involved in building ideas and in building solutions, we stop paying attention to certain aspects. For example, in this case, we stop paying attention to what comes in the middle of these major steps. And this is where a lot of drama happens. For example, this is where the reviews and the approvals and the convincing happens. And if the convincing and all has to be done here, this is where the meat of communicating happens. And how does this communicating happen? A few examples. In case of problem, in the first, there are some reports, designers create BRDs, there are mock-ups created, there are blueprints created. These are all artifacts that we designers create, so that when one team has worked on something and is passing on to the next team, they're able to pass on this artifact so that their clear idea is communicated to the next team. But my question is, are these artifacts enough? By just giving this artifact to the next team, is your job done? Or do you have to add something else to communicate that ideas better? Because why else are all these ideas getting rejected? That is what we want an answer to. So I want to ask one question to you. If you have a great idea, but your idea is rejected, you have an amazing idea, but this idea got rejected, then are you a great designer with just some poor communication skills, or are you a bad designer? Now, you don't have to answer this question. You can ponder over this on during the weekend. But we understand that communication is a very important aspect in this whole process that we are talking about. Communication is what bridges these different teams. So the question that we want to answer today is, how can a designer best communicate their ideas and avoid rejection? Or in other words, how can they plant the seed of that idea into the listener's brain? Sounds a little gross, but that is the whole idea. You want to plant that seed into the fertile brain. Okay. So to look at the next stage, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to tell you about a question that I've asked many people. Maybe 200 or 300 different people I've asked this question. And maybe some of you know the answer to this, but if you know the answer, please don't say the answer out loud. Okay? So I'm going to ask you the question. The question is, where did you first hear the word dyslexia? Where was the first place that you came across the word dyslexia? And when I asked all the 200, 300 number of people that I've asked, more than 90% of the people have told the same one answer, the same one source where they heard this word dyslexia. Now don't tell me the answer, but I want to try this. I don't know, maybe this can flop, but if you know what I'm talking about, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where that source is? If you know, could you raise your hands what I'm talking about? Okay, not bad. The answer is this simple movie called Tare Zameen Par. Now when you see this poster, is it reminding somebody? I'm not sure. But this movie was the reason for so many people to even come across the word dyslexia. Now imagine, this movie was not about dyslexia. It was about this boy having fun and some troubles he was having. But through the story, they have managed to take that concept of dyslexia, the learning disorder, and place it in all these brains and say that, yeah, this is what dyslexia is, and this is how people need to deal with it. Imagine the number of parents, the number of kids who must have, had a better life just because of this movie. And to me, this is the true testament of the power of the single superpower that we humans have, called storytelling. And with that example, I have my answer. Storytelling is how we can plant the seeds of our ideas into the listener's brain. Storytelling is the answer. Now I know it's a cliched answer you see every day in LinkedIn. Well, storytelling, take storytelling, do storytelling, and your case studies are going to be better. But I'm going to try and steer a bit away from it so that there is at least some new information, and if not, sorry guys. So, for looking at what storytelling is, I'm going to be looking at this guy. His name is Mr. Kendall Haven. He's a story scientist and he's an author. And I'm going to refer to this one book that he has written, an amazing book. You guys should go through it, and it has a lot of useful information. But from that book, I'm going to be taking two important aspects, which is how the brain accepts information and what a story looks like. So let's have a look at it. So first, let's look at how the brain accepts information. Now, what we usually think is that information comes, our brain takes it, puts it in the memory, stores it. That's what we usually assume. But what Mr. Kendall Haven says is that when information enters the brain, the first thing that happens is it takes a pause, and then the brain makes a story, and then it sends into memory, storing, processing, and all of that process happens after that. You guys don't believe me? Let's do a small test. Okay? Please read this. Where is Jack? Well, I didn't want to tell you this, but I saw his car outside Susan's. Now, there is no information here. It's very bare minimum information. But let me ask you, is there some sense that you're able to make of what's happening? Some sense? Some sort of a story came into your mind? Yeah? I've been told to ask, how many of you think there is something going on between Jack and Susan? No? Somebody? Nobody? Amazing, amazing. I thought the crowd was a shy crowd, but good, good. I'm happy about this. But there, the reality is, Susan's is a pub, and Jack is fighting alcoholism. But do you guys care? You guys have your own story. You took that 2 sentences, created poor Jack and poor Susan, their stories all set. Now what that means is that when the information comes in, if there are any missing pieces in the story that you're feeding in the information, if there are any missing pieces, the brain automatically fills those gaps and then creates a story and then stores it. Now this is a problem because when we actually present our ideas, if there are some missing pieces in that idea, when it reaches the listener's brain, what's going to happen? That listener's brain is going to add its own masala and make that nice idea, and that is going to affect how your idea gets communicated. The second thing that I want to talk about is how does a story look like? Now I don't want to delve too deep into it. The book Story Proof would be the ideal source for it, but let me quickly show you the information. According to Kendall Haven, from a lot of his research, what he has identified is that a story typically looks like this. Main character is there who has a goal, there is a conflict that's stopping him, then there's a support character who supports him, and in a climax where there's tension happening, and then there's a resolution which is happily ever after. This is the simple story. And for proof, if you take Tare Zameen Par, the movie that we talked about, I hope you guys have watched Tare Zameen Par. Yeah, if you haven't, we can't be friends. It's an amazing movie. Please go watch the movie. But this also is a little bit of a spoiler, sorry. But so this, when you can put most of the movies that we see, can be put into this simple structure. You take Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, you take Munna Bhai, every movie that you take can be somehow fit into this movie, novels, all stories. Now, the real question comes is, so now we understand what the structure of a story looks like. How do we use this structure in design? Now, this is where something mind-blowing was noticed. There was an unexpected overlap between two very distinct things that I don't know if have been captured anywhere else. What I saw is that in the story structure that Kendall Haven defined, if we take a design process, a simple linear design process, a high-level design process that we follow, if we take it, there is a piece of the design process that is perfectly parallelly matching to every stage of the story. There is a user persona, there are should happen now, user motivations, there are pain points, there are solutions, there is a testing, then there are the happy users. So every step in what we consider the common normal design process is having an exact parallel with the design story structure that we know. Now what does that mean? I thought that was a really good thing to explore, and I've documented that overlap between story structures and design process, and have presented this research paper as part of a conference called Futuring Design Education 24. It happened this year in February. The paper is still not published, and hopefully if you follow me on LinkedIn, we'll somehow, when this gets published, I'll let you guys know, and there I am. That's me. Yeah? Thank you, guys. So, this paper has a lot of information. I'm not going to go into the depth of it, but simply put, the paper looked at shifting focus from, usually design process are look like, okay, do user persona, you do this, that check mark, tick mark, that completion of process so that you can finally start ideating however you want. Instead of that, this paper talks about, instead of looking at those single pieces, look at it as a correlation between the pieces. And that correlation is what is known as a story. So the whole paper is about moving from a user-centric view of design to a story-centric view of design. It's not about the user persona, or not about the single things. It is about looking at solutions as a story altogether. Now, you can ask, so what? Now, what that means is, this overlap that I just showed can help us, have a clear way of structuring how, design solutions can be moved into story. Now, we understood that design solutions have to be created into story. Let's have a quick recap to see what all we covered. We first looked at designers have great ideas, but they can't communicate. They are not able to do that very well. Secondly, the listener's brain accepts information only in story format, and if there are missing pieces, it will do its own auto-filling, auto-gap-filling process. And thirdly, in the research paper that I just showed, the design process is very similar to the structure of a story, and hence, we can use this to figure out how a solution can be defined as a story. The most important question is how to structure an idea into the story. We have talked about structuring. How do you actually do it is the question. And the answer to that is a burger. I know there are complex, detailed processes, blueprints that tell you how to present, but today I'm going to take all of that, crumble into this one small piece and say, this is how you can present your ideas. What does this mean? Your idea is like the patty of a burger. And usually what happens when you get an idea, you just say, this is my idea. I have an idea, this is my idea, do you like my idea? That's like taking the patty and just giving the patty and say, eat it. That's not how you eat a burger. So what we need to do is, we need to take the patty and place it beautifully between those two buns, which is the problem, which is users and pain points, and then the impact. So by just structuring it into the problem, idea, and impact is the easiest and most simplified way of structuring your idea into a story. By just doing this, your idea has automatically moved into a story. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Let's take UX India as an example. There was a video by the founder, Mr. Kaladhar Bapu. In 2005, when they started, UX India was this. UX India is a not-for-profit organization aimed at creating awareness about UX design. But the same story in 2024. Look at the number of people here and all the breakout rooms. What is the story that brought all of you guys here? In 2024, they have a burger. An increasing number of Indian designers, they can't navigate the design career. There are so many designers out there, and hence UX India is coming as a non-profit aimed at creating awareness about UX design, so that these designers become a part of one of the biggest design communities in India, which is the Impact. Now, just by putting it like this, the whole story of what UX India is and what they mean to the designers of India becomes clear. Now, for most of the cases, in most situations, when you have an idea, the simple template one would suffice, the problem, idea, and impact. But in some cases, your audience are going to be a little tough. In that cases, you might have to serve a full meal. You might have to add some supporting data, you might have to add some additional information, and that is template number 2. And by the way, I have a name for this template. You guys are not going to guess it. Do you guys want to guess it? It's called the burger method. But even if this second method is not accepted, then we have a safety template number 3, which is this. Yeah, guys, it's too late. Storytelling can help with communicating, but not with stupidity. You guys need to change your company. I'm just kidding, guys. There will never be a requirement for template 3 because burger method will always work. There is no need. It will always work. Okay? So, coming back to my original point, this simple piece of paper with a bit of glue on top, it took 12 years to convince that company that, this is a good product, and now it's one of the main products of 3M. And if the company rejected, and this company kept rejecting this idea for 12 years till they finally had a story. The simple idea needed a story. That means big ideas and bigger ideas need grand stories so that you can tell them. Now, I have only one thing to say. Between maybe 40, 50 people sitting here, we have maybe 100, maybe 1,000 ideas in our heads. Some of those ideas are going to be bad. Some ideas are going to be okay, some are going to be good, some are going to be grand and great, and some are going to be world-changing. And if any of you are planning to get into that business of, changing the world, I have one thing to tell you guys. Start with a burger. You've been an awesome audience, guys. Thank you so much.